I'm here on day, I don't know, 327. Okay, it's really like week 3 of the coronavirus quarantine here in California. And I'm coming at you guys with some tips and tricks around cooking at home. I know lots of us don't usually have time to cook, and now we have this added impetus for cooking, but maybe not all of the equipment that we need. On top of that, if you're like me, I have 2 little boys, you're looking for activities to do with your kids, and you would love for them to be even somewhat a little bit productive so that you're not just adding another thing to your plate. So that's why I'm popping in today with some tips for teaching kids to cook. These are awesome activities for getting your kids hands-on in the kitchen, keeping them busy, and even getting some help while also giving your kids lifelong skills that are gonna serve them. Now, full disclosure, I have 2 little kids, they're 2 and 5, so most of what I'm gonna share is applying to like the under 10-year-old set. But of course, a lot of these things that I'm sharing and these ideas might spark something in you if you have older kids as well. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you 3 things. First, I want to share with you my 2 main rules for cooking with kids so that you don't end up frustrated and angry and all the things that we can do when things don't go the way we plan. Secondly, I want to share with you 6 activities that are great for kids. And then finally, I'm going to show you a little video of my kids cooking in the kitchen with me and give you a few more ideas as well as like a real life look into what this looks like. Sound good? Let's dive in. All right. So if you haven't been on my channel before, my name is Amy. I'm a natural food chef. I am a mom of 2 little boys. I am a personal chef. I do lots of cooking. But this whole coronavirus, like being at home more thing has kind of thrown me for a loop, and maybe it's thrown you for a loop too. Meaning that like food is harder to get. Luckily, we've had plenty of food so far, but just like it takes a lot more brain power, and then I'm supposed to be teaching my kids some stuff. I'm not always sure what, and I'm trying to keep them busy so that they're not destroying the rest of my house. And yet I have 4 of us who need to eat 3 meals a day, and we're doing that exclusively at home. So I have 2 main rules when I'm cooking with my kids. The first is that I need to have a plan. The times where things go completely off the rails is when I like don't have equipment gathered, I don't have a plan for what we're making, and it's like pure chaos in the kitchen. That's a lot like the rest of parenting, right? And then the second rule that I have for myself is that I need to accept that the plan is not going to go as I planned it, and they're gonna make a total mess. Here's the thing. Part of the experience of cooking is learning to make the mess, giving them space to make the mess and not micromanage every little piece, and then yes, including them in the cleanup of the mess as well. So this is my encouragement to you to say, I know that this is gonna make a little bit of mess, but if you do it right, you can actually get some help in the kitchen, you can teach them some skills, and you can even teach them some cleanup skills. How about that? I know we could all use a little bit of help with that these days. Cool. So the next thing I wanna share with you are the 6 great activities for kids, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the different things that they develop. I wrote a blog post about this a while ago. Like I said, I'll link to that if you prefer to read. In doing that, I researched some of the actual like skills that are developed, not just the obvious ones of like peeling a banana, but the actual developmental skills that are developed in those times as well that might help you envision how this incorporates into some other teaching that you're unwittingly doing at home these days. Cool, so the first thing that I love to include kids in is peeling. There are all kinds of things that kids can peel: bananas, corn, clementines, oranges, a hard-boiled egg. And one thing to note is that I don't recommend actually using a peeler with a kid until they're about 6 or 7. I don't know about you, but I've definitely peeled my fingers before when I'm in a rush, and it takes a lot of oversight. I prefer not to have my kids do things that require a ton of oversight in the kitchen, because then it's just more stressful for me and I have to like make sure I'm there all the time. So I don't use peeler until my kids are a little bit older. Some of the things that they can learn while peeling is sorting foods. They can learn about the different parts of the food that we eat. And then of course you can also teach them about composting the parts that we don't eat versus keeping the parts that we do eat. And in terms of development, this is really good for bilateral coordination, so using both sides of their body, and pincher grasping. So think like, you know, those smaller movements with their fingers that they need for writing and other things in their lives. All right, task number 2 that's great for kids is mashing. So mashing can happen with all kinds of things. I love to use a potato masher for this. One like this works really well. I'll link to it in the show notes if you're interested in getting one. But a fork is just as good of an option if you don't have a masher already on hand. Things that are great for mashing are bananas, steamed sweet potatoes, steamed cauliflower, and avocado. And something you can teach with this is different consistencies. So I like to talk to my kids about, like, we're gonna try and make this banana really smooth, and when it's not quite as smooth as I would have hoped, which is usually the case if we're making banana bread, then I will ask them to mash it a little bit more until it's smooth. So we look for the lumps and we talk about consistency. And then the second thing is changing the shape of things. So like, this was a solid banana and now we're turning it into like a thick but more liquid version of itself. This task is really good for improving grip and hand and finger strength, as well as that bilateral coordination, holding a bowl while mashing. The third thing that I love to do with kids is mixing. So mixing is one of the easiest and most versatile ways to get your kids helping in the kitchen. Lots of things need to be mixed, and there's not a lot of ways to mess it up. Although my kids always, when I'm like trying to take good care of our ingredients and not waste flour, the flour goes flying everywhere. So that's my one caveat. Some ideas for things to mix are the dry ingredients for baked goods, oatmeal with water, so like before you cook it, the wet and dry ingredients for baked goods, and then of course you can have them beat some eggs. As far as egg beating goes, I have 2 tools that I really love. One is just the standard whisk, but this I got at IKEA. It's a hand mixer that's powered by hand, and this is really good for that like arm strength, and again, that bilateral development, holding something and moving something else. And things we talk about when we're mixing are why it's important to mix things, how you can mix effectively. So again, trying to minimize the splatter is one of the things we talk about. That's going to be a real life skill for them when they get cooking. And then finally, we use our strong muscles for better mixing. So it's almost like a workout in one. And it's really good for their arm muscle development as well. All right, the number 4 thing that I love doing with kids is smashing. So smashing is like a little bit different than mashing in that it uses stronger muscles. It's a loud task. And what I like to do for that is like put nuts in a Ziploc bag and then have them use something heavy to smash it. Something like this tiny cast iron pan is a really good tool if you don't have like a mallet that you use in the kitchen. And I like to make sure that they're on top of a cutting board when they do that so that they're not also ruining my countertops. Things that they can smash are chocolate and nuts. Those are really good things. And things that they can learn from this is keeping your fingers out of the way, keeping your brother's fingers out of the way, using force to break things up. How much force do you need to break it? And then recognizing the size of things. So like if we have big walnuts and we want to make them smaller, when is it small enough and how can they recognize those sizes and shapes? And this is really good for developing strength in the hands and fingers. Thing number 5 that I love to do with kids is to stem things. So this is taking the stems off of them. Strawberries, cherries, carrots, tomatoes on the vine, blueberries if they have like the little tiny stems in them, grapes, and then we also use mint a lot in our house, so we'll do that with herbs also. This is a good chance to teach about the parts of the food that we do and don't eat, and it's also really good for teaching concentration and patience. We haven't gotten all those off the stem yet. Let's work on it for longer, and it kills some time. And this is really good for fine motor skills. And then finally, snipping. So I like to use kids' scissors in the kitchen. I wash them off real well, and then we just use their kids' scissors. And these are really good for cutting up herbs, so cilantro, parsley, chives, mint once you've gotten it off the stem with all of that stemming. And this is a really good chance to teach about using scissors carefully, snipping things into like even pieces, and the parts of the herb that you use and don't use. You know, we use this part of the rosemary, but we don't use this thick stalk. This is really good for scissor skills, which has like a lot of skills underneath it, fine motor skills, gross motor skills, and visual perceptual skills. A couple of other things that I have in my kitchen to make cooking with kids more fun and more simple is this 3-pack of nylon knives from Amazon that I love. I'll link to it in the notes. These are super safe. You like really cannot cut yourself with it. I've tried and my kids have tried. They're not super sharp, but they're not as dull as say like a butter knife. And so kids can actually make some traction on things like bananas and strawberries, steamed carrots, avocado. And my kids like go crazy for cutting things, and I don't have to pay too much attention because they're not going to actually cut themselves, and they can like practice using that force. And then the second thing is, I'm gonna show a picture of it here, is a kitchen stool. You can just use a step stool if you have one. That has always worked really well for my 5-year-old, but when we added a smaller 2-year-old into the mix, this one of those standing kitchen stools that keeps kids contained has worked really well, and it actually works for both kids at the same time. So if you don't have one of those, or you don't have a setup for getting kids up to the counter, I suggest coming up with some sort of solution that's safe, that you're not worried they're gonna fall backwards from, and that allows them to be at counter height. So now that I've shared that with you, I want to show you this video of me cooking with my kids. I'm going to narrate it over the top so that I can explain some of the things that I'm having them do, and you can get an idea of what cooking with kids looks like in real life.
Hi. Oh, hi. I was just saying we're cooking right now.
I was just saying, let's eat.
We'll be cooking whatever we want. You can follow us if you want, follow along if you want. We'll just find the recipe.
So our goal with this video is to show you what it looks like to cook with kids, some of the things that I'm having them do. I get this question a lot, like, I want to cook with my kids, I want to involve them, but sometimes it seems like a lot more trouble than it's worth. I don't know what to do. So I'm going to show you some of the little things that we do that can expand to, of course, like any recipe that you're making. As you can see, prepare yourself for pure chaos. Step 1. Step 2, be okay with the mess. Step 3, get yourself one of these awesome stools so that they can be safely up at counter height. This is definitely worth the space it takes up and the money it costs us. And then step 3 is step 4. We're on 4, right? 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Step 4, you're gonna make sure that you have some things that they can do. So I am like pre-cooking with them right now, and then I'm gonna use all of this stuff in dinner in a little bit. Make sense?
Yeah.
High fives? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Let's do like 2 sweet potatoes each into that bowl, please.
Splash, splash.
Just 2 or 4?
2 each, so what's that total?
So Connor goes 2 and I throw 2?
Yeah. And then I have these clean scrubbers, so you each get one, and you're gonna scrub your sweet potatoes. You need to dry these sweet potatoes off for me, please.
I'll do these ones.
Thank you so much. So the next thing is that we're gonna stab them with the fork. So this helps the sweet potato skin to like not explode when it's cooking. So you just need to like press the fork in a bunch of times all around, okay? You do those 2 and you do these 2. I hope that today's video was helpful to you. I am so excited to bring more content like this to you, and I would love to know below if you have any questions. Thanks so much for tuning in, and check back as I'll be posting videos twice a week to the Family Kitchen Coach channel to share more tips and tricks for feeding your family well, even if you are super busy. Take care.